Good evening. The Rancho Public Schools Board of Education meeting for Monday, October 14th, 2024 is now called to order. If all would please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, JC, can you take a roll call for us?
President Galbraith?
Present.
Vice President Morgan?
Present.
Secretary Tyler?
Present.
Board Member Tripp?
Present.
Board Member Miller? You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we'd like to excuse Board Member Miller tonight. She's not able to be with us. We'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. We have not too long of an agenda, but we do realize that Dr. Schmidt gets to do a majority of our meeting tonight, and so we're really excited to go through.
It's our fine art extravaganza.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and start with introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Visu Cleveland.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. We are glad you're here. Now, prior to the meeting, there was an arts integration workshop that was presented by Dr. Kurt Schmidt, Executive Director of Fine Arts. Also, there were a team of individuals who had gone to visit 2 schools in the Denver area, and they were also there and shared their experiences and their takeaways from that visit. The 2 schools that were visited, one was in Jefferson County, and the other was in the Aurora School District, both of them in the Denver area. And the workshop described what an integrated arts curriculum is and what it is not. And that entire workshop was broadcast for folks who had an interest in looking at it. So it's a very interesting topic that we're working on in our district and looking at doing a couple of pilot projects on arts integration in our elementary schools. The purpose was to seek out approaches that enhance student engagement and promote both joyful teaching and learning. And that, interestingly enough, was identified as a priority need in our strategic plan. And during our strategic plan, we heard over and over, we needed to improve student engagement. We needed to make learning more joyful, more interesting, and it needed to be just more integrated into our overall instructional program. And so we were looking for programs that were doing that and things that we thought we might find useful to use in our own school district. And so those programs provided evidence of a more active type of learning and approaches that demonstrated positive student behavior as well as strong academic achievement. We have some commendations this evening. We have commendations for the Rio Rancho High School Wind Symphony. They have been selected as the New Mexico Music Educators Association All-State Honor Band. It's a wonderful honor and recognition. And then there was also be a commendation for Rio Rancho Middle School, the Phoenix Philharmonic. And if you don't understand the Phoenix piece, they are the Phoenix at Rio Rancho Middle. And they were selected as the All-State Honor Orchestra for the state of New Mexico. So we congratulate both of them. We also have the Raleigh, I'm not sure, Helpman Service Award. Dr. Schmidt will discuss the significance of this award. And it is a prestigious award that is earned by the Rio Rancho Public School District Fine Arts Department for this year. And so we congratulate everyone in the fine arts area. Certainly our district commends the leadership of Dr. Schmidt and all of our directors and teachers in our fine arts programs across the district. We really appreciate the really outstanding opportunities that they provide our students every day. And this is another affirmation of that hard work. We do have one other, and we'll be bringing that later. We did have a state fair winner, an art student, and she was not able to be with us this evening. Her name was Kiana Aragon, and we will be recognizing her at another board meeting. General obligation bond sale results. There will be a report from RBC Capital Markets on the recent 2024 bond sale that was, as you know, for $20 million. Eric Harrigan will provide a transaction review, including information on the purchaser of the bonds. And there was sufficient interest. There were 9 bidders for this sale, which is really good. And the interest rate that was proposed was very good, especially given the current market. So we're very pleased with that effort. We thank RBC Capital Market and they are, of course, our financial advisor, the Module Sperling firm, which is our bond counsel, our Rio Rancho Finance Department, and also our legal department for all their work on this bond issue and bond sale. And there's an awful lot of work that does go into that, but it was successful. And we'll be sharing the results of that with the board this evening. We also have a report. Renee Saucedo, our Secondary School Improvement Officer, and Stephanie Moore, our Executive Director for Secondary Education, will present to the board proposed changes for graduation requirements for the Rio Rancho Public School District. As you know, in the last session, House Bill 171 was passed, and this bill passed with strong bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. The New Mexico Senate floor approved this bill by a 40-0 vote, which is almost unheard of in terms of the New Mexico Senate. And House Bill 171 was signed by the governor on February 9th of this year. And so I want to emphasize that these changes will impact students who will be starting in the 9th grade next year. So if you're a high school student now, this does not impact you in any way, doesn't change anything. Several years ago, a bill was passed that new changes in graduation requirements can only start with an incoming 9th grade class. And I believe Senator Brandt was the author of that bill, but it has really saved a lot of anguish in trying to fit students in to changes after they've already started their high school career. And then the bill does provide some much needed flexibilities for our students. And we recommend that Rio Rancho Public Schools continues to require the 2 additional units for graduation, and we'll explain why during the presentation. We have an agreement between the Santa Fe Opera and the Rio Rancho Public School District. I really want to emphasize that our partnership with the Santa Fe Opera has provided many wonderful opportunities for our students in the school district over many years. We appreciate the work of Charles Gamble, the SFO, Director of School Programs, and the board will be asked this evening to consider a continuation of that agreement. And again, this information will be provided by Dr. Schmidt. We have another agreement for between our district that furthers the fine arts programs in our district, and that's an agreement between the National Dance Institute, New Mexico, and the Rio Rancho Public School District. We're asking the board to consider approving an agreement between NDI, New Mexico, and RRPS. And we have had, as I said, this partnership for many years. And Dr. Schmidt will share with you some of the benefits this agreement brings to our students. And we have our contacts have been Liz, and I'm sorry in advance if I don't get your name right, Salaganik, NDI, New Mexico Artistic Director, and Jesse DeBrose, Albuquerque Outreach Artistic Director. We appreciate their efforts in making this partnership such a success. This year we have 4 schools that are being served by this partnership: Puesto del Sol, Colinas del Norte, Sandia Vista, and Maggie Cordova Elementary. And then we have an update on policy 806, and the board will be asked to consider changes to this policy, and it deals with animals on school district property. There are some significant proposed changes in this policy. So this is a first reading, therefore no action can be taken by the board at this meeting. And a second reading, with any changes to the board saw fit to make them, will be presented for action at the October 28th board meeting. And these proposed changes will be presented by Sal Maniaci, our Executive Director for Safety and Security, and Sherry Carver, our Executive Director for Student Services. And then we are asking the board approval to move forward with arts integration at 2 of our elementary schools. Approval is being sought to begin moving forward with this initiative. We have spent an hour and a half in the previous workshop going over some of the particulars of that commitment. This will allow the team to begin working in earnest with both our staff and our parent community on this very important and innovative project. And Dr. Schmidt will present this item. This would be our first effort at offering some different and themed opportunities for students and families within our school district. Do you have any questions or comments?
Questions for you?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. I'd also like to recognize, and I failed to do it at the beginning, that we have Representative Kathleen Cates here with us today, and she'll be giving some public comment in just a little bit, but we want to welcome her to our meeting tonight. So we'll now go to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Madam President, this is Board Member Tyler. I'd like to make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations with the removal of item F4.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
Got a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll now move into our commendations. We now have 3 tonight. Our first commendation is for the Rio Rancho High School Wind Symphony for being selected as the NMMEA All-State Honor Band. And Kurt Schmidt, our Executive Director of Fine Arts, will be presenting.
Actually, excuse me, if we could have all the teachers come on up, I think they'd probably save a little bit of time for these accommodations. Excuse me. President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. Tonight I would like to present 2 ensembles and their teachers and 1 department for commendation. The 3 commendations are recognition received from the New Mexico Music Educators Association, which is the state affiliate of the National Association for Music Education. First, I present to you the Rio Rancho High School Wind Symphony, not actually the band, but the director, which has been named the 2025 NMMEA All-State Honor Band. Over the years, the Wind Symphony has time and again performed at a very high level and presented some of the best literature in the wind band repertoire. The ensemble is typical of the band program at our RRHS, which strives to give the best musical experiences to the students involved. For the director of bands, Mr. Matt Casares, right here, the most important thing is to produce, in addition to fine young musicians, the best people possible. The Wind Symphony and Mr. Casares will perform at the 2025 All-State Conference this January at Popejoy Hall on the campus of the University of New Mexico. So I invite him to say a few words if you'd like to, or not. Sure, okay.
I'd just like to say thank you for your continued support over my now 18 years here in this district. I used to be the young guy to him, but now I find myself the old guy. But continued support has always been there from everybody here. So thank you very much to the board and to Dr. Schmidt, and happy birthday to Dr. Schmidt.
Oh.
We were supposed to keep that quiet now, weren't we?
No, I was just going to say, so that's why it's the Dr. Schmidt show this evening, because it's your birthday. Now we know why you're on almost every agenda item. So happy birthday.
That is not a birthday gift. I don't.
I was thinking you might not feel that way.
The Rio Rancho High School Wind Symphony is not the only Rio Rancho Public Schools musical group to receive honor ensemble status. The Rio Rancho Middle School's Phoenix Philharmonic has been named the 2025 All-State Honor Orchestra. This ensemble is a collaboration between the band, choir, and orchestra programs at RRPS and is the brainchild of Ms. Donna Schmidt and Mr. Brad Dubbs, band directors, Ms. Stephanie Wilkerson, choir director, and Mr. Brendan Wright, orchestra director. This ensemble involves around 130 band, orchestra, and choir students from RRMS and had its debut last spring. The Phoenix Philharmonic will also perform at the NMMEA All-State Conference this January in Popejoy Hall. So I'm not sure if they're all speaking or no one.
Thank you.
No, this is a real honor for these ensembles. They have to submit a recording in the summer to among all the best groups in the state, and that they are judged by third parties outside of the state, and then they receive this honor. So this is a real honor for both these ensembles. We wish them the best of luck. And I'll give you the information, but the concert's open to the public if you wish to come see these fine ensembles. So thank you.
You guys sure you don't want to talk?
Thank you.
You can.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, Dr. Cleveland wants to add.
I just want to say something really quickly. You know, we have a lot of these have come for all state recognitions, and I think it's real easy to underestimate what an accomplishment it is when you get it more than once. There are districts that never achieve that, never get that recognition. It is a high level of excellence to be able to get the all-state honor. So I don't want to get so used to it that we don't really appreciate how very significant it is. But congratulations, and it is a wonderful honor, and we're really excited that you have a chance to do that over again, and do such an outstanding job every day, every year. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one more accommodation. The entire Rio Rancho Public Schools Fine Arts Department, as Dr. Cleveland mentioned, which comprises 70 teachers and staff, has received the NMMEA Raleigh-Haltman Service Award for 2025. Over the years, the Fine Arts Department has hosted numerous NMMEA events, such as a task force on music education, the Music Educators Summer Workshop, the state band and choir competitions, All-State, and most recently, the inaugural state marching band competition. And I get the feeling they just are giving us this award because they want to use our facilities, but it's a real honor to receive this. The Fine Arts Department will be honored at the All-State Business Luncheon this January, and it's a real testament to the fine quality of teachers we have, dedicated staff who just run this department every day, and they're a phenomenal group of educators. So it's again a testament to their dedication and talent. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's
Thank you.
that's from me.
And that is the Schmidt Show.
Yeah, to begin, we have more. You know, I have to say, I'm just so grateful for Rio Rancho Public Schools and for all that we put into the arts. From the very beginning of our district, it's been something that's been very important to our district. I felt that for me as a high school student, as that was the things, those were the things that were important to me. And I see with my own kids, my oldest, that was where she found her place at school. Those were important things to her. And so I'm just grateful for our district, and I hope we can keep up the good work and to let all those who are in our arts programs to just know how grateful we are to you, and that you make a huge, huge difference in the lives of our students. So thank you so much. Anyone else want to say anything? Anyone else? Go ahead.
Thank you. It's really appreciated by all our families in this community and the kids. And I think I echo what Dr. Cleveland said. You do a great job, and keep doing it every day for these little ones. Thank you so much.
I'll just echo what Gary said. Thanks for all your work. Really appreciate it.
You're right. It is one of the crown jewels.
It is. It is good.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I not say something now, right? No, and Dr. Cleveland's point is well made. You know, it's easy for us to start to take for granted the excellence in our schools, whether it's recognizing our sports teams, our fine arts teams, and it is a testament to the leadership that we have in those positions and the hard work that you all, the boots in the ground, you know, do to lead our students every day. And it is very well appreciated, and definitely not taken for granted by the board. And one of our always, you know, our favorite parts of the meetings is to be able to commend and recognize the hard work that you all do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay. And we'll now move into our public comment portion of our meeting tonight. So we have numerous public comments that have come in, both through online, and we'll have about 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 7 in-person public comments tonight too. So I'll start with going through the public comments that came in through our online form. When we do the public comments that come in through our online form, I just summarize them. And so I invite those individuals who would like to have their voice heard to please come into the boardroom to give those public comments if they would like to have more of their voice heard. I do like that we have an online one, and we do read through each of those, but Of course, it's always better coming from the individual. So I'll first go through those, and then we'll talk a little bit about the in-person public comment that we have tonight. So online, we received 15 public comments, and 14 of those are in regards to our safe space signs. And 2 of those are about our the Good News Club and Bibles in the School. And so for our 13 came in about our safe space signs. I think I could do my math if I'm in a school district. So going through those, I'll just go ahead and read the names who sent those in, and they are all in regards to our safe space signs. So we have, I'm hoping I wrote this one right. So Kaisten Figurowski. Okay, safe space sign. Amanda Kraft, Jen Doolittle, John Pendergrass, Shannon Padilla, Emily Holsknicht, Vanessa Waltz, Maggie Prince, Lucia Duncan, Sashia Nautenbelt, Chris Doolittle, and Christina Wildman, and also Elizabeth Blograve. So those are ones that came in for our safe space signs. I find that I grew up here in New Mexico. I think I do better with Hispanic names than I do with the European names, which is interesting. And then we received 2 about our Good News Club and Bibles in the School, which is Francis O'Hara and Joshua Kelson. So thank you for sending those in to us throughout this last couple weeks. For our in-person public comment, as we go through those, you will have 3 minutes to give your public comment. JC will have a timer, and when that timer goes off, we ask that you sit back down and allow others to give their public comments. As I always make sure that we bring up when we do public comment in the board, we cannot respond back to the public comment unless it is on our agenda for the evening. There's possibility that with our public comments that it could occur on a future agenda. But those are the laws that we work under, that we are not able to comment back on our public comment as they are given to us unless it's on our agenda for the evening. And so with that, we'll go ahead and start.
You might remind them that I think I think they're supposed to put their first and last name.
I have
the
them.
board can, is it there?
Yeah, it is here. Yeah, I got them. Yes, we got them. Our form's
Oh,
kind
we're
of
just
funny,
checking to
and
make sure we
yeah,
have that.
just want to make sure we have both names. Our form's kind of funny because you signed up, so it has 2 different lines for it. So, and so it looks a little different. Okay, so we'll start with our public comment. Our first one will be from Sam Colombo. We'd like to welcome you up, and the timer will start as soon as you start talking. Okay.
All right, good evening, board members, superintendent, and board president. My name is Sam Colombo. I manage the 24/7 campaign, which works to make New Mexico schools truly tobacco and nicotine-free. We help school districts adopt, implement, and enforce truly tobacco and nicotine-free policies that are comprehensive. Under a truly comprehensive policy, tobacco use, possession, and distribution are prohibited by anyone, anywhere, at any times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This past November, the New Mexico Public Education Department approved a rule requiring that all public school districts adopt a comprehensive tobacco policy. This was in large part due to the efforts of a lot of our students across the state who worked with 24/7 and the PED on this. Rio Rancho Schools, while it does have the policies it needs for tobacco and nicotine, it does need to do some updates to these in order to be in compliance with the new PED rule, which I brought some printed copies if anyone wants them. We reviewed the current policies that were revised back in 2018. And in order to have a comprehensive policy, I'll just summarize some of the key points since it's a short time, but would love to talk more in detail at a future date. The tobacco policies for students, staff, and school personnel must read that the use, possession, and distribution of tobacco products and nicotine products are prohibited at all times, 24/7. Same with visitors. The main aspect here to add is at all times, and to specify possession and distribution, which are not currently specified. The policy must also specify that schools provide referrals and resources to help students and staff overcome nicotine addictions when they are found in violation of the tobacco policies that the district has. We have examples of what those look like in the toolkit, which I brought with me. Happy to give, happy to email, happy to meet more and talk more in depth about it. But that's in the toolkit and is an important part of this new PED rule. Lastly, each district advertising policy shall prohibit the promotion of all tobacco and nicotine products on school property or at off-campus school-sponsored events. I'm keeping this short because it's public comment, but would love to have more in-depth meeting about this in the future. We have a lot of resources we can offer the district at no cost. We have free bilingual signs, which signage is also required by the new rule. Happy to give those and even leave these with you, but aluminum ones, posters that we give to the districts. We have free faculty training resources, and we also offer free presentations to middle school classes and elementary school classes as well. But really, that's about it. As general as I can keep it for a public comment. But times are obviously changing with nicotine products, and it's important to do all we can to protect students while they're at school to the best of our ability. So I'd love to be a resource to all of you, and hopefully we can stay in touch. Thank you.
If anyone has materials, you're welcome to leave it up on the table there. Our next will be Elena Maves. I don't know if I said your name right. Yeah, okay.
Hi, my name is Elena. So I grew up in Rancho, and I attended RRPS schools all my life. I went to Vista Grande, Mountain View Middle School, and then Cleveland High School. I graduated from there early in 2020 during the middle of the pandemic. I am also an educator. I now teach English at a high school in Albuquerque. You know, I'm a friend, I'm a neighbor, and I'm also a lesbian. And I've been out since my freshman year of high school. I came to say today that I agree with the statement that every space should be a safe space for kids. Every space should be a safe space for kids, but unfortunately that is not the world we live in right now. And the existence of LGBT people is not political. It is a fact. Ignoring oppression does not make it go away. It simply leaves students unprepared for the complex real world they are about to enter. Cleveland was not a safe space for me. It was not a safe space when I was holding the hand of my girlfriend in the hallways. It was not a safe space when I was being called slurs in PE. It was a safe space when I walked into the classroom of my Italian teacher and she had a full-size rainbow flag up on the wall with the word pace in it, which is just peace in Italian. That teacher was not LGBT, but she was absolutely there for me and all of my fellow students at every turn. And I just wanted to emphasize that you don't create a safe space for all students by removing pride flags from signs. You create a safe space for students by making a commitment to stand up to them when it really counts. You create a safe space by authentically caring for each and every student. You create a safe space by committing to respect, not just in spite of our differences, but because of our differences, because we are stronger when we are together. So I wanted to ask you today to reconsider your application of the existing policy. I understand it's an existing school policy, but I believe it needs to be investigated further, and we need to reconsider whether or not we are supporting the self-expression of all of our students and our educators as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next public comment is Madigan Ray.
Good evening. Like my predecessor here, I am also a queer person who did not have a good time in high school. But I did have a good time when I went into the classrooms of the teachers who cared about queer students and the problems that we faced, including the one who helped me start my town's first Gay Straight Alliance Club. Rainbow flags are not a political statement. The support of queer children is not a political statement. But what is a political statement is taking them away. A political statement is taking away equitable support for the children who are most at risk of bullying, harassment, and acts of self-harm and suicide. And what you're saying when you take away these signs and ban these signs is you're saying that people are either heterosexual or political. And that means you're creating a hostile space for anyone that doesn't fall into the heterosexual category, because by declaring them political, you're telling them that it's not okay to feel how they feel or be who they are. You're telling them that they matter less and that they aren't free to express themselves the way that heterosexual students are. We've seen where this road leads. We saw it earlier this year in Oklahoma with Next Benedict, and we will see it here if the needless politicization of queer children is allowed to continue. So I am asking you to please give teachers the ability to put these signs back up in their classrooms, and make their classrooms equitable and inclusive again. And just remember, if you're going to continue taking away these signs, there are already people lining up to take your jobs come the next election.
Thank you. Our next is Lisa Paz.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I want to wish everyone a happy Indigenous Peoples Day today. Thank you. I also want to make a comment about the safe space signs. As a parent in the district and who went to school my entire career in this district, I don't think that anybody feels that their child is not safe in the schools, that these teachers and staff would not do anything in their power to save them in an emergency. So it's not about them needing to feel everywhere is a safe space. They know school is safe. However, like we teach our children when they're in a large crowd, and if they get lost, look for someone in the uniform, right? Those are the people that can help efficiently and effectively, quickly. Look for someone with the badge. That's what we're asking for with these signs. It's simple as that. That's just the badge, that they have the resources to help, they have the experience to help, they have the willingness to help, and these students need to be able to identify these people, like the stories you've just heard. When they knew who they could identify to go to and be there and support them, that made a huge difference. And that's what we're asking for. It's the same thing as saying, look for a police officer when you're in trouble. Look for those people who are identifying as willing to help, have the resources so that these students get the most support as effectively and efficiently as possible. So I do also ask that we allow to have those safe space signs available again for both the students and for the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next is Stephanie Mayer.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to come and speak this evening on the safe space signs. I have been an audiologist in the public school system for 28 years. I'm a straight, married, white woman. And I have watched the creation of the safe spaces over my career. And I have watched the students thrive by having those safe spaces. And I fear taking away those safe spaces is a giant slap in the face. It's really, I think it's really heartbreaking to think that we would set aside, this space was created, this symbol was created in a sense that to protect these children, to let these children know who the people were they could go to, exactly. And now we're saying, yeah, never mind, we're taking that away. And yes, I understand there is a reason. I see both sides. I see the side where we say, well, we don't want to single people out. Everyone's treated equally. It's all the same, but it's not an equal world we live in. And maybe teachers can choose what symbols they put on their signs. Maybe some who feel straight or queer, but they bond with that community will put a rainbow on. Maybe others won't. Maybe someone will put a football on it because that's their, I don't know. I'm just trying to think outside the box, but I think taking away the rainbow is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Ryan.
Dr. Cleveland, Madam President, members of the board, thank you again for your time. Due to the nature of this public comment space and of advocacy being about pointing out problems, and since I've been here advocating for safe space signs for over a year now, I'd like to start instead to shake it up with some gratitude. So I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for this school district. I am beyond grateful for my school site, for my administrators. I'm incredibly lucky to have a job that I love more and more the longer that I do it. And I don't even have the words to express my gratitude for my colleagues, as they're a phenomenal professional community. And the work that the school district is doing with the new UFO Records Center is just one of the coolest things I think I've ever heard of in my life. And I want to thank you all for your contributions to making this a community that can do that sort of cool thing. I came from a tiny, tiny, tiny school district in Texas with insane amounts of micromanaging and zero trust between the board and administration and the educators. And it really only catered to one side of the political spectrum. And those are all reasons that I left that school district, and frankly, why I left Texas as a whole. So when I advocate for the safe space signs and as a form of autonomy for teachers supporting their students, it's because I don't want the same reasons I left that school district to be the reason that good educators leave this one. We live in an incredibly and increasingly divided time, and these conversations feel increasingly delicate to have. However, I argue that perhaps the answer isn't to lean into the treatment of these topics as volatile, and that instead we could use this as an opportunity to lead by example and with love, and build a collaborative community where differences don't have to be tampered down to pacify others, but that all of these different demographics with different experiences, different values and needs can coexist in respect and safety and in harmony, where it doesn't have to be blue versus red, me versus you, my needs versus your needs, where a rainbow safe space sign doesn't take away from Christians' values, and a Bible study doesn't take away from LGBTQ students' safety. These aren't mutually exclusive. And I know because I was both the kid who found community in a Bible study and safety in the classrooms of teachers who had safe space signs. We can take these conversations and use them to build something where all of these diverse walks of lives can be represented vibrantly in the same space under the same roof, instead of treating them like they're taboo, which only divides us further. The opportunity to heal the world just a little bit by starting in our own backyard starts here with Board Policy 404, and it lies in your hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and our last for the evening will be Representative Kathleen Cates.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland and President. If you weren't moved from the previous speaker, I'm a little emotional from that, so thank you. For those of you who don't know, I am a resident here at Rio Rancho. I'm a state representative, and I'm a parent from the Rio Rancho Public School District. My kids participated in football and basketball and track and band and drama. And so that means I participated as well. And the school district means a great deal to me. In 2023, hate groups came into Rio Rancho or made themselves known and tried to ban books from our public library. And I was so very proud of our city's city council and mayor who were able to understand what this meant and be able to create a resolution to stop the book banning that was occurring. I am very concerned as a parent and as a funder in this school district about the safe space signs. I would respectfully ask you to bring in a community group to actually have some public comment in a workshop to be able to go over this. 18% of our LGBTQIA community in high school have self-harmed or committed suicide. And as a public school board, if you had a group that was twice as likely to commit suicide as any other group, I don't know why you would take away a place to communicate to them that, hey, you are heard, you are seen, and you are safe in this classroom. That's what the safe space is. It is not a political symbol. Have political groups used it, as I'm sure they have in Black Lives Matters? But we celebrate our Hispanic heritage. We celebrate Indigenous Day today. We celebrate our unique groups and variety in our community. That's what makes our community so special. I'm not sure why we are so afraid of this one group, and making sure that they know that they are heard and safe in probably some of the most vulnerable time periods of their life. Your community and the professionals of the Rio Rancho City Council, clear and respectful and inclusive, which as a resident and a taxpayer, a voter, a state representative of this community, I want our elected officials and the public school board to please create a safe space in the city of Rio Rancho. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, we just want to thank everyone who came in tonight and gave public comment. I think it's one of the most important things that, we have a lot of people who like to complain, whenever you're out in the world, but people don't give public comment. And so I think it's important, no matter what the issue is, to give your public comment. So thank you for coming in tonight. We will now move into our reports section. So on our reports, our first report will be the 2024 bond sale report. We have Eric Harrigan, our RBC from RBC Capital, who will present. It's good to see you, Eric. We've missed you the last few meetings.
It's good to be here. Good evening. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland, Eric Harrigan with RBC Capital Markets. So as you recall, the board authorized the issuance of voter authorized bonds at a public sale, public competitive sale. As part of that approval, you delegated to the superintendent to approve the sale of the bonds to the winning bidder, and I'm here to report those sale results as part of that delegation process. So on October 8th, the district did have a bond sale. As Dr. Cleveland mentioned, there were a total of 9 bidders. JP Morgan was the lowest bidder at a 3.04%. The highest bidder was R.W. Baird at a 3.18%. So the bids were all very quite close, which was good to see. This has a very short 2-year maturity. Bonds will be paid off in 2026. The bonds will close, in a couple of weeks on October 30th, and that's when the funds are available to expend on the projects. There are a few slides in the back here that we have on the market. I won't go through it. Rates did kind of tick down in anticipation of the Federal Reserve's action in September, where they cut the Federal Reserve rate by 50 basis points. Because of some of the economic news that have come out over the last couple of weeks, interest rates have ticked up a little bit, but the timing of the sale turned out pretty good. I mean, we'd be looking at an interest rate probably about 0.15% above where we achieved last week when we sold the bonds. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has about sale or the process.
Okay, Dr. Clune, do you want to add anything as we go to questions?
Just the thanks to everyone for all the hard work. It was a good sale. The results were good, and we're really pleased with that.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, thank you. Gary, you have any questions?
Nothing, I'm good. Thank you.
Any questions? We make it so easy for you. I'm going to have to come up with a whole set of questions for the next time you come in. No, but thank you so much for all that you do. I've been really enjoying, actually, I've been learning more and more about bonds. And so as you give your reports, I've been really enjoying kind of really going through them. So thank you for all the hard work that you do on our behalf. We appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
I would just add that a good bond sale doesn't just happen by accident. You know that. And just tremendous amount of time and effort, the timing, all the information. We had, I think, a very good interview with rating agency, and none of that happens without strong leadership and support. So I really do want to emphasize, we appreciate the good job that you do for us.
Well, I have to say that you all make my job very easy. You're tremendous to work for. So it's, you guys have incredibly, professional staff. Again, you just make my job, that much easier. It was a really good, meeting with Moody's. And, the district is in good shape. And, you've seen through the growth in your tax base, we're hoping that there will be, increased capacity, in the future through general obligation bonds to be able to help continue to be able to make some of these, critical capital improvements.
Great, thank you. And we can't function without these, so it really is very important to us. So thank you.
Madam President, I do think it, as well as, thanking you guys for your work, I do think it stands to recognize the community for continuing to support the school district and passing the bonds too. So, we wouldn't be here allowing this process or being able to go through this process if the community didn't support us. So I'd like to thank the community for their continual support of the district as well.
We will put it to good use. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
We have plenty of needs.
Yeah, always, always. All right, thank you. Our next report will be on graduation requirements. And so we have Renee Saucedo, our secondary school improvement officer, along with Stephanie Moore, executive director of secondary curriculum and instruction, who will present. You guys have very long titles, but.
Madam President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, thank you for giving us this opportunity to come and talk about graduation requirements tonight. Not quite as exciting as Kurt's stuff, but it's pretty close. Last year with House Bill 171, they introduced some changes to graduation requirements that will start with this year's 8th graders, the incoming 9th graders for next year. So we just wanted to go through what current graduation requirements are, where we're currently at, and then what the new requirements are. So we start off with current state requirements. For English, for math, that stays pretty consistent. Right now, 3.5 social studies, 3 science, 1 PE and marching band, and ROTC can count for your PE credit. Half a health, which right now we take at Rio Rancho Public Schools, they take in the 8th grade. If they don't take it in the 8th, they can take it at high school. 1 language, career, or college workplace. Lots of courses you can figure out lots of courses that fit into that area. 1 credit that's either advanced placement, distance learning or dual credit, and then 6 electives. And the state requires 24 credits. So that's the state credits, current.
So currently in Rio Rancho Public Schools that are 2 comprehensive high schools, these are the graduation requirements. For English and for math, that lines up with the state requirement, including Algebra 2. We require 4 social studies credits here. So we have that extra half a credit of social studies, and we require 4 science. So being a senior is in 4 core their senior year, right? They're getting a core education all 4 years. They have to have PE, half the credit of health, the language, college and career workplace credit, an AP, distance learning, and dual credit. This is a hard component, but it has not been hard since COVID because all of that time on distance learning for anybody that was in high school crowded took care of this. This was a challenging component for students to get sometimes. 5.5 electives, and we do 5.5 because we require half a credit of fine arts and half a credit of tech here, for a total of 26 total credits to graduate from Rio Rancho Public Schools.
Okay, the next slide. Yeah. So if you want to actually look at House Bill 171, there's a link to it. The new state requirements. So what we've done is put an asterisk next to all of the changes that are different statewide. So still 4 credits of English. The credits are the same for math, but now the requirement is that you have Algebra 1 and geometry. There's no Algebra 2 requirement. 4 credits of social studies, 3 credits of science. Oh, the social studies changed because it used to be 3.5, and now it's 4, which matches up with what we currently have. The PE credits remain the same, the health credit remained the same. It's 5.5 credits of electives. And the new kind of nuance here is that you have to have 2 credits in a pathway. So if you're a band kid, you're going to get your 2 credits, and you are there for all 4 years, you're going to get your 2 credits in a pathway. CTE classes, we have lots of different options, but this is somewhere that we're going to have to kind of look at. And then, well, languages, fine arts, CTE are options there. And then 2 credits set by the local school board. Right now, the 2 credits extra that we have that the school board has set is an extra science, a half fine arts, and a half tech. When we set it, it increased us to 26. I think I can kind of talk about the advantage to 26 versus 24 credits. We're 7-period day, so kids have the option of 28 credits. So requiring 26 credits when there's so many other requirements gives kids more of a chance to experience electives. If we cut that back to the state requirements, we're really going to, just because you have a tendency to do that minimum, right? Your kids aren't going to be able to experience as many electives as they do when we have the option of 26. 26 allows if you are in athletics, if you're in band, if you're in choir, those classes that tend to take 4 years, it allows those kids to have other options. Do you have anything to add to that? I know we kind of touch on that later too, so these are the new state requirements.
24 is there.
24
is the
We're at
minimum.
26. We're still at 26.
We're still at 26.
So when you are looking at the differences, right? So we have a side-by-side comparison now for you. What are the state minimums? And then what's Rio Rancho Public Schools? So the yellow are the things that are changing. The state is upping their social studies requirements. We already require 4, right? There are some changes that we'll talk about social studies with that, but we already do the 4. The 3 science, the state is the state minimum. We require 4. The math change has to do with the Algebra 2. It's still the same number of credits. It's just what those courses are or have to be. The 1 AP dual distance learning or dual credit, that's no longer a state requirement. So that is an area we can look at eliminating from our requirements. It was a requirement that was added when it was added from the state. It wasn't something that we had prior to that. Right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the half credit of fine arts and half credit of tech. So that's kind of where we are in alignment between the 2, the 24 and the 26 that we have. So our next slide is about things that we need to consider in the next month or so.
Yeah, we need to make a decision on what the requirements are going to be probably by the mid to end of November, because kids are going to start signing up for classes, program of studies are going to come out. So we need to make that decision what the credits are going to look like for the incoming freshmen. Things to consider. Now, things to consider doesn't mean we want to get rid of them. So, but they're things that either we currently have and could possibly look different if that's what you want to do. So we currently have a half tech credit that we wouldn't necessarily need. We currently require the half fine arts credit. And we know by what we just saw, you know.
How important it
So-
is.
Right.
Careful with that.
I know.
We didn't say
It's
get
Kurt
rid
Schmidt
of it.
night. I'm not going to say it. The New Mexico History and Geography. Rio Rancho Public Schools is currently, so we have separate courses. We require this at grade 9. We're currently the only district in the state that requires these as separate, or that has these as separate courses. Now with the new state requirements, they have set it up so you do freshman, sophomore, junior, you take your core classes, and they would like for your 4th year to be a little bit more flexible. So maybe English, you don't take English 12, you take creative writing or technical writing if you're at the CTE Center. For New Mexico History and Geography, they want us to add that into US history. Stephanie can speak to to the history courses.
Yeah, so currently under the new state standards, US history has 160 standards alone to cover. The recommendation from the PED is to embed New Mexico history and geography into that course. That course is already loaded, like it's a lot. So it would be a challenge for a US history teacher to then integrate these other 2 sets of standards and ensure that we're getting them all to students.
Well, and our geography right now is part of an AP course. I know at Rio Rancho, I think that would cause, and it's
Yeah.
pretty, I think there's a lot of students enrolled in those
Yeah,
classes.
so AP Human Geography is one of the only AP classes that we offer to freshmen. And we offer it as a year-long course. It is a really successful course for students. The change comes in the fact that while they upped the number of credits you have to have, they're giving you discretion in this New Mexico history geography. Most of the state embeds geography in US history and world history now, and they have for years. But I've been here for 18 years, 19 years. We've always offered a standalone course here, and kids tend to be pretty successful in it. So I don't know about the success of integrating them. And then what do you do with staffing when you eliminate a whole course of requirements? So
another thing to consider is a financial literacy class. There are standards that fall under math standards, and there's also standards that fall under social studies standards. So you can have 2 different types of financial literacy classes. We actually thought that a math financial literacy class might be nice, especially if you're not taking, whether or not you're taking Algebra 2, but especially if you're not taking Algebra 2, it would be another good option for you to take if we did financial literacy with the math standards. So that's something that we need to look at. Do we want it required? Do we want math or social studies, full year or semester? But we do have a full year math financial literacy course that we could access.
And it's actually already being deployed at Independence, the math financial literacy course. Social study financial literacy standards are being embedded in the social studies classes already, right? That was part of the curricular work that they did over the last 2 years, is to integrate those because they're tagged to each content, those financial literacy standards. So
we should also look at the 4th year science. I'm a science teacher. This is kind of like the fine arts. I'm not necessarily saying that's what we should do, but it's one of the options we need to look at. Algebra 2, the state no longer requires it. Do we want to require it or make it optional? If we make it optional, then what other math courses are we going to offer? And then the pathway identification, we just need to come up with, like, if every student's going to have 2 credits of electives that are in a pathway, we need to make sure that we have plenty of options for students. Luckily, we have a couple of years to work on this, but we need to start working on it. And then lastly, how many credits for grad? Do you want 24? Do you want 26 as far as credits for graduation?
So beyond just the simple nuts and bolts of what we're going to take to to earn a diploma from Rio Rancho Public Schools, there are other things that we have to consider you'll need to consider while you're making this decision. And if we make any changes, what does this do to staffing? Are we looking at increasing staffing needs? Are we looking at needing a different set of staff in order to teach different courses? And do we have enough staff to manage pathways? We also, becomes a course load thing too. We teach 6 of 7 currently. Lots of schools don't, right? Lots of schools are 5 of 7. So at the high school level, so having to take those things in consideration anytime we start pulling back on requirements. Transportation, if we lower how many credits students need, what are we going to do with kids with partial schedules or if they're finishing early? Because like Renee pointed out, unless we're changing a bell schedule, kids have the opportunity to earn 28 credits. So then what do we do with kids who are finishing or don't need full schedules? College requirements, we want to keep this in mind as we make decisions for kids that are going to need Algebra 2 to go on to get through the clearinghouse, or who need languages. We want to make sure that we're still offering and meeting those needs. And what new course creations are going to be needed. This is really going to play into what we decide to do with math. Because we do have a very robust 4th year math option for students. There are lots of choices for them. The question is, what's going to need to be reworked in order for them to access any of those courses if we're not offering if they're not having to take Algebra 2? Because now they're going to need 2 math courses, and it needs to be something they can access without Algebra 2. So part of also why we need to get ahead of this so that we can start looking at what some of our 4th year courses are going to look like from here forward. And we always have to keep in mind all the decisions that we make have implications and impact on how students perform on standardized testing. And whether we like it or not, right, it is a measure and the public facing way of our success of our school. And we want kids to be successful, and we want people to know how successful we are. So we do need we need all of those standardized numbers to be the best they can be. So we want to support kids to be attaining those high marks on all of those too.
So it's a lot of information. And you may want to take it, study it, send questions. But as far as next steps, what we would like to hear what you all are interested in. We can bring options. We can, how many credits do you want? Do you want to stay at 26? Do you want to stay at 24? Go down to 24? I think that we feel pretty strongly about staying at 26. Once you drop, then kids aren't going to be taking classes and we're going to lose staff or lose the need for staff if we drop that. So that's when we're looking at, which do we drop before science? Do we, what are we going to do with fine arts? The total number of credits, adding a math class, that's all a shift in staffing.
So, I mean, in a weird way, well, what would be interesting to see is if we could, how many of our students are actually taking 2 electives within the same, what is the, thank you, track pathway. I'm like, words are escaping me.
So pretty quickly, like we can get numbers on CTE completers because those, and I think it's important, Renee and I discussed this morning, we have CTE courses that are remaining and pathways that are remaining at our comprehensive high schools, that just because when we open the new Skill Trade and Technology Center and they have that whole robust program there, we had CTE programs and CTE classes at our high schools before this was on the horizon, right? So they still exist, and we have completers, and those numbers look really good from Larry, right? You think about how many of our kids that take at least 2 years of language.
That's
a pathway. If they take 2 years of AP in a similar field, or our Project Lead the Way program, or our Ed Rising, like we have some things that we can start looking at numbers. It's not a data point we've tracked. So, I mean, we can pull how many kids are in Spanish 2, then we know
Right.
how many took Spanish 1.
Okay. Okay. That would be, I don't know. It would be interesting just to see that so we can kind of have a good grasp on if we're already kind of just doing that anyway. Or if there's a lot of, I'm sure there's some students that aren't.
I would say we are. I don't
Yeah.
think, I think it's a big shift for the state, but I would say, I mean, having worked at Cleveland, having gone through transcripts at Independence, our kids, they might be taking art and then another art class, or they did painting and pottery. Like we have a lot of kids that they get in a vein and they'll take a couple classes before they move on to something else.
Okay.
Which is why it's important that we keep our standards high and our credit count at 26, so kids do have options. It's hard when kids have to start making choices between, they already have to make so many choices, but if we're asking them now, well, now I'm going to need you to choose between band and Spanish. That's going to be a hard thing for families.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm going to let Dr. Cleveland, I know she has some notes that she wants to go through, and then we're going to go to the board and kind of ask some questions and give some comments. I have all these thoughts on my paper. And so we talked about that. Maybe this is something we're going to need to sit down and talk more about. And remember, this tonight is just a report. We're not making any decisions tonight. This is just for us to start thinking so we can have those questions and have that better conversation. So Dr. Cleveland, go ahead.
Yeah, it is just a report tonight.
Yeah.
And so perhaps a workshop format,
Yeah.
sit down and talk about some of these things. And there are pluses and minuses for a lot of things. I would hate to see us go to the minimum. We have never been a minimum district. And I hate to see us go there because there are some things that I think our students would miss that they very much need to be successful. And you look at Algebra 2, maybe that's not for everyone, but people also have to know that you don't do Algebra 2, you're probably going to end up remedial math in college.
And you can't take calculus without
and
Algebra 2.
that's a challenge. And I know our higher ed folks are strongly recommending that if students go on to a 4-year traditional, that they have both of those to avoid losing that year. New Mexico history raises some issue. Yazzie Martinez, culturally relevant, kinds of questions about how we deal with those issues at the high school level. I really want to build on what was said about the 4th year. 4th year science can be the traditional, and if you're going on higher ed, for example, anatomy, if you want to be a nurse or a doctor or whatever, anatomy for your 4th year of science would be a wonderful course to take, and relevant in terms of rigor, but also relevant in terms of getting one of those important courses out of the way before you go on to college. Certainly both science, like anatomy, or in math, technical math, in a CTE field may be a better math than Algebra 2, especially if it's related to a specific area in the CTE program. And, maybe business technical writing or business English might be a better 4th year than 4th year English lit. That's hard for me to swallow, but I understand that realistically, that's probably absolutely true. So I think, we look at some of these issues. The other is wanting students to also not get so locked in to these 2 courses that they miss something important. So they're doing 2 of these courses and no foreign language, because there's no room left in your schedule for that foreign language. Or you do 2 years of foreign language and you can't do band. And so having that flexibility. The other is the state has just over the years gotten really very aggressive about senior students who don't go to school most of the day. So much to the point that they have threatened to take money away for students that only come, a couple of classes a day. Well, honestly, we would struggle if we lost that revenue. But we also think that it's really good for high school kids to be in school most of the day. And unless they're in an apprenticeship, unless they're in some kind of structured opportunity or a dual enrollment, certainly dual enrollment classes. So there's just so many complexities to this. The technology credit, when we put that in years ago, technology was a very different level than it is today. Our kids are very technologically literate in most cases, and they don't need what we used to cover in that technology class. On the other hand, as we've heard from some of our board members, there's a real need out there for financial literacy for kids. And so that's an area where it can pick up one of those math credits. But I don't know, anywhere we go, whether we go to businesses, to our chamber, everyone says financial literacy is an area that our students could really benefit from having more of an opportunity to take in high school. So there's an opportunity, I think, for something that is a huge need. And I think it's just almost a general community consensus that we need to do something more than we're doing in that area. And so those are the kind of questions I think we would want to sit down and talk about.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we cut to 24, our students are not going to get the education they're getting now in Rio Rancho. On that fourth year of science, I would remind everybody that science is one of the areas we do pretty well in, and that's not by accident. And I think that's and that's another area. If you don't do well in high school, you're going to struggle in college if you go into certain fields. So it's yeah, there are a lot of things to think about. But my recommendation would be we come back and do a workshop and we look at all of those individual factors. But I think the big change from when we were doing it then to now is CTE and all the things that opens up for our students for in that fourth year, apprenticeships and dual enrollment classes and maybe some content courses that are much more appropriate for what they want to do with their lives in that fourth year, like anatomy, for those interested in the health professions. So those are just some thoughts. And but we don't have a lot of time, as Renee said. We really need to get on this pretty quickly. So we'll schedule if that's okay with the board. But I'd still like to hear if there are other things you want to know about or
Yeah.
after what you've heard tonight, any thoughts you
Yeah,
have.
we'll go to questions. And then I know Renee and I were talking, so make sure if you have more questions as we go through this, we can send those to them and get those questions answered, especially sometimes just as we let it sit a little bit, we're going to have more questions as we talk about it. I do think it's kind of something that is so big. And I'm not sure how to do, it's hard because it would be great to have some community involvement as we talk about it. At the same time, if you just put out like 24 credits versus 26, people are just gonna be like, 24, because that's your initial thought on it without realizing all of the things. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think that might be something that we should try to think of, how can we involve that a little bit in our process in a very short time that we have. So I don't know if we have the time to accomplish that. But I'm going to go over to Jessica and see what she has.
I mean, I feel very strongly that we stay at 26 credits and don't entertain going to 24. Again, I think that's one of the things our school district has prided itself on is the rigor. And by decreasing it, there's a lot of other, I think, maybe unintended consequences that can occur. And to your point, I think people absolutely live up to their expectations. And we already have students graduating early, and you want to keep kind of, the ability for them to be exposed to as many things as possible during their high school career. So I felt pretty strongly that we don't entertain reducing it to 24, but I don't get to make the decision by myself, but that's where I stand. Other thought is potentially, I would hate to see us remove Algebra 2 for those kids that want to go to college and have plans to go to college. With the opening of CTE and making sure that we're giving that alternative pathway to other careers, I think it could be interesting to give 2 tracks, like the college readiness track where we give them Algebra 2 and then maybe a CTE track. My hesitation to that is that it could be very complicated to be able to have the appropriate resources designated, because I feel like a lot of students, you don't know till you know, right? So as a sophomore or a freshman or an 8th grader having to make that determination of which pathway they want to choose at that age, it's likely going to change once they're exposed to different things. So I don't know how that would look, or the complexities of trying to monitor that if we gave kind of two-track options
We
to our
would
students.
offer Algebra 2. It will continue to be offered.
I just think that if students don't necessarily always know, like kids hate algebra 2, right? They don't necessarily know, like, I have to have this to be able to get into college. And so if they're given the choice not to take it, they're not going to take it. It would be my more often than not, right? I mean, you're going to have your students that are very academically driven, and they will, but you're going to have those students that maybe are on the cusp or think as a sophomore, I don't want to go to college. And then here they graduate and I hate to have our kids graduating behind the power curve if they want to go to college. So those are kind of some of the thoughts that are going through my mind specifically with Algebra 2. And then you have other students that know very definitively, yes, I'm going to go, I want to follow in my dad's footsteps and open an electric company, and I'm going to go to CTE, and I'm going to do, these are the paths, and and they don't change, but for the most part, they're going to change. So would it be possible to do financial algebra or some sort of financial literacy with a half credit? And so that's kind of where my mind goes, is like replace the tech credit with financial literacy or some sort of financial algebra. I think that's something that everybody, no matter, it's a life skill that you need. And I think that's something that's great to be able to provide our students.
Yeah, I have that written down too. As far as the tech credit goes, we are so tech heavy. I think we had talked about this a few months ago that, when we first had that tech credit in there, technology wasn't the way it is today. And so I had that kind of same thought on mine that would be a good one to think about, because we use technology and everything. These kids are, they're good on tech. so that I agree with that thought. Anything else, Jessica?
That's it. Thank
you. Gary, you want to go ahead and go, or we can go to...
I got a lot of things, but I first want to say that I listened to a retired admiral from the Navy last week give a podcast on how the military has to change. They need to become a preventive medicine type of machine, and they have to be a warfare type of machine, and they have to be a strategic type of machine. So they need about 10 times the population they need now, and every single one is going to have to be highly intelligent and skilled. So with that, I think 26 may not be enough, but that's a good high standard. I remember 1/3 of my college students every year failing college algebra.
Right.
And that's, I think, a national statistic, not just a New Mexico statistic. So if our kids that are in college, 1/3 of our population are graduates, or 50, let's just say we had a great class and 50% went to college, and 1/3 of those how many are out in the military or out in the streets now with not that high mathematical skills that they need in order to. And then I have my best friend who brought in $440 million to the state of New Mexico to work on a water line from Los Alamos to Santa Fe. And you got to know how water pumps uphill. And he brought in $75 million the year before that in Socorro on a water line. So he brought in $525 million. And I said, how do you do it as a civil engineer? How do you write those grants? He said it was my 12th grade English teacher. He marked every red line. He stayed up every night and graded our papers. And the only reason I bring in $500 million a year to New Mexico is because of my 12th grade English teacher. So I don't know if we can substitute to things. So my suggestion is maybe there's some engineers, maybe there's some really skilled people out there that know about future jobs in the future that we need to just bring into a work session. So you guys and maybe the two principals listen to that as you put all this together, how it could all play out. But the biggest suggestion, and I'll stop rambling, is we heard a lot of good things about artificial intelligence and AI. I just wonder how AI can help us with this problem so we can give every kid the maximum education they need, because we're going to need, and Stephanie and Renee have heard my sales pitch on my job, but we're going to need highly skilled construction workers, highly skilled electricians, highly skilled workforce in our community, and we're going to need a highly functioning military, and we're going to need a highly functioning national labs all over our country, and that's going to take a lot of rigor. We can't water anything down. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to get a better understanding of the, more in depth on the financial literacy. That's so important. Me being in the business world that I'm in now, and just seeing a lot of kids not being able to understand basic math with profit margins and different things like that, percentages. That's very important to me. I talk to a lot of business owners, and they do talk about how that's missed from our young students today. So I just want to really get a better understanding with that as well.
And we can reach out, and when we have the workshop, we can bring in like what the units look like and that would look like.
All right, thanks.
I mean, in case you are unaware, Sean Adams at Independence, in a need to fill a fourth year hole right over there, has developed a really, really robust financial literacy math course that IHS kiddos are taking right now. So it's a really good, solid class that we could, and it started as a semester class. He has it out as a full year now, but we could get it to the best pieces in a semester, right?
And where is this at again?
Independence. Yeah.
Anything else, Jeff, that you want to go over?
Is there any way I can come by and see that?
But yeah, we can make arrangements for him.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to come by and take a look at it. You seem to be pretty pumped and encouraged by it, so I'd like to take a look at it.
I'm proud of him.
She knows
He's done a lot of
it
work over
personally.
there.
Okay, then, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have more, Dr.
Yeah,
Cleveland?
just when I was looking at this college Vine, that it gives direction to college students when they're doing applications. I just wanted to add it to our previous conversation about Algebra 2. In New Mexico, I'm hearing is it won't keep you out of college if you don't have Algebra 2, but you will probably end up in remedial math, which puts you behind in your program. So that's a concern. However, outside of New Mexico, they're saying Algebra 2 is still generally seen as a cornerstone math class in high school education. Many colleges still do expect to see it on your high school transcript. It's not just about the content of the course, but also about demonstrating that you are prepared for the quantitative reasoning required at the college work level. So particularly if you're going out of state, there are still a lot of requirements to have that Algebra 2 on the transcript, especially for maybe more select colleges and universities. So going back to the comment earlier, I think it's really important that for students who aspire that track, that we certainly, our counselors say, Algebra 2 is probably pretty important for you if you want to go the more traditional route in a four-year college education. That being said, certainly some of the CTE courses at the college level, like technical math, are very rigorous courses. And so if you really know what you're going to do and have a pretty clear plan, that may be a really good way for you to get that technical math out of the way. But often that technical math is that college math that Gary's talking about. And a lot of our students struggle with that if they've not had Algebra 2. So I think it's just a matter of truth in advertising. For students who don't take it, we're really clear what the pluses are and what the minuses are. And then the student and their family makes a decision. But it won't keep you out of college in New Mexico. I want to be really sure that that's clear. But many of our students go to remedial math at the college level if they have not had it.
Yeah.
Not all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will, for athletics, they'll need Algebra 2.
Hmm.
The last I knew it was still part of the clearinghouse requirements, so.
Okay.
Also have to keep that in mind.
So I think it'll be good for us to sit down and talk more about it and look at everything. My concern, I guess, as we look at this, especially as the way the state has set it out, is I'm a little concerned for our counselors, because I think this kind of puts a lot actually on them to, and I think we need to start thinking sooner too, as they get into 6th grade, we need to be setting them up for high school and thinking about these things, especially if we have more options, even as we look at some of these things. The other part of this is just as we're looking at elementary schools, right? We had a workshop on our elementary schools and things that we're looking there to look into the future. I think the same for this, and what are some things that we can do with this? I know it used to be, we have these dual credit options, and yet at the same time, our district's not super friendly dual credit. We're getting better with our CTE, and it's an option. But I think we really do need to look at those things so that we keep students here. As I think we have a great schools. People want to be a part of Rio Rancho Public Schools. At the same time, if we're not giving them those things that they really want, we're going to lose them to other places. And so I think we need to, as we look at these credits, think about that too, and how can we integrate that more in? I know Rio Rancho does a great job. They have I think it's financial algebra that they do. That's a dual credit that they're able to do on campus. And maybe that's something, we try to look at some more of those options as we're moving ahead. So
We do have several of them.
That's good.
Has, some of their FFA courses that are part of the dual credit.
That's good.
Process through these
Yeah, so those are good things. So
Worked in a system like this.
it's good. Okay, so I'm excited to actually take a look at some of those things, because I think that it's needed a change, honestly, for some time. So hopefully we can generate some more questions. And to Gary's point on the AI, not only I think could it help us, but I think that's something that we need to look at in our schools too. And as he says, we're going to need we need to have workers who are skilled in all of these different things, because AI honestly is going to take their jobs. And so that would be a great class to offer to start looking at. I don't know what that looks like. I don't think the world knows what that looks like yet. But it also, we should try to look at that just as a tool overall for our district. So, all right.
Well, just mentioning the financial, I don't know if you want to have anything to say about that, but I know in one of our meetings, they talked about financial algebra, really frowning on that class. It's not really algebra. It's not financial literacy. And it's kind of a hybrid to kind of fit a situation in time. And so really encouraging us to look at going financial literacy, a real financial literacy board, or go with algebra, but don't kind of pretend there's a little of both. And I think there's some valid concerns that they've raised at the state level about that. So that's another thing we need to be cognizant of as we look at that course.
Okay, any other questions, concerns?
We're good. Thank
comments?
you.
Thank you.
Looking at, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that. Yeah, I know. It'll be good, maybe.
We will see you soon.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, so we'll go to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, this is Board Member Tyler. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Board Member Gary Tripp, I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, second by Gary Tripp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, now we'll go to the business portion of our meeting. So we'll start with considering the approval of the memorandum of understanding between Santa Fe Opera and Rio Rancho Public Schools. Dr. Kurt Schmidt, our Executive Director of Fine Arts, will present.
President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland.
Oh,
Yes,
there
it
it goes.
is. It took you walking over here to. Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, just a point of clarification, you have the memorandum of agreement in front of you. We are in partnership with Santa Fe Opera for two different activities. One is the New Mexico Art, which is with the Kennedy Center, 3 other school districts, and the Santa Fe Opera. That is not the purpose of this agreement. This agreement deals with the Santa Fe's Alto program, active learning through opera. And they come into all 4 middle schools in the fall and 5 elementary schools in the spring, and either 5 elementary schools and then 6 elementary schools. They alternate every year. So this is about the Alto program. The Santa Fe Opera brings teaching artists in for opera clubs for the middle schools, and they work through the SAFE program for the elementary schools to have the students produce their own operas. They have the students write their own libretti, they have their students write their own music, and then they perform this at the end of the semester. So this is the agreement for that part of the partnership we have with the Santa Fe Opera. So I don't know if you need more clarification or if I can answer any more questions.
Any other questions from anyone? Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything?
No, just as I said in the introductory remarks, we are very appreciative of this partnership. It's brought a lot of good things to our kids over the years.
And we've also increased the participation, at least in the middle school this year. It kind of dwindled a little bit, but we've managed to try different tactics to increase the enrollment in this program.
Okay. Any other questions? We can go to
I'll make a motion to to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Santa Fe Opera and the Rio Rancho Public Schools.
Gary Tripp, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And JC, if you'll take a roll call vote for us.
President Morgan? Vice President Morgan?
Yeah.
Secretary Tyler? Yes. Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 3.
Thank you. That's okay. All right. Our next is to consider the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the National Dance Institute and Rio Rancho Public Schools. Once again, Dr. Kurt Schmidt.
President, members of the board, this microphone is for
If you ask.
You work with mics your whole
Did you want to? We did vote
Do you
on the
want to
first one.
ask if he wants to? That's up to you.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know how that works, but Vice President Morgan, did you want to cast a vote on the last one? You can go ahead and cast your.
Yes, I mean, I'm in,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. There we
Is that
go.
okay, Lauren? Okay.
We're good. Okay. Thank you. All right, Dr. Kurt Schmidt, go ahead. Oh, never mind. Sorry, I looked away. I wasn't registering.
President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, this, again, a point of clarification on this MOU. The National Dance Institute, it's a little misleading for what they do in our school district. There are 4 elementary schools that take part in a program run by NDI. They're basically movement classes, and they could be described as SEL classes. They get the kids thinking in positive ways, healthy living, moving their bodies, et cetera, and I forget what they say, but the kids say they'll be strong, they'll make good decisions, they'll be healthy, and that sort of thing. So it's a movement type program over 14 or 15 weeks. Either, we do 2 elementaries one semester, 2 elementaries the second semester, and we've been doing this since before I got into this position. It's a wonderful program. The teachers rave about it. The administrators love it. So again, I'll stand for any questions.
I will say my niece was a part of this at Puesta, and now she's a high school student. She's almost done with high school, but I remember when she was little, she really loved it. So it's great.
And if I could send out the invitation, but if you ever have the opportunity to see one of these performances at one of our elementary schools, it's just amazing. The kids are really jazzed up for these performances. So.
Just one question. Any chance of expansion?
I have brought that up. We did expand to one or two more schools in the last couple of years. The problem is NDI is currently focusing on schools within a 5-mile radius of the Highland Theater where they're based. My contacts there, Jesse Dubois and others, they would love to expand out here in Rio Rancho, but it's a matter of staffing for there. I keep bringing it up and we keep talking about it. One part of this MOU though is that they are giving a 3-hour workshop for up to 40 teachers about how to incorporate movement into the classroom. So that's a nice benefit. But to your point, I'd love to see it expand to every single school, but presently that's not possible.
Dr. Lund, do you want to add anything else?
I just echo the same. If there's ever additional resources, we would love to see more schools served because it is a wonderful opportunity. But we understand we all deal with limitations in terms of resources. So that's understandable. But we'd love to be the first whole district in the state. And so perhaps that's in the future. But it is a wonderful program and our kids benefit greatly from it.
Yeah, that's good.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the National Dance Institute of New Mexico and Rio Rancho Public Schools.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. JC, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Tyler?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you get a moment. You get a moment. All right, now we'll go to our first reading of the Board Policy 806, Animals on School Property. Sal Maniaci, our Executive Director of Safety and Security, will present.
Good evening, President Galbraith, Superintendent Cleveland, and members of the board. Myself and Sherry Carver are here to present to you the first reading of changes suggested for School Board Policy 806, Animals on School Property. These changes were made to be in compliance with state rules, regulations, and laws. And we know you've been presented with a copy of it already, so we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add on this one before I go to questions?
The only thing I would add is it's becoming more and more of an issue. And so we really do need some clarification on what fits the policy and what does not. And so it's coming out of a need for greater clarification, and knowing how much we love animals, and knowing that, they're just an important part of our lives and our families and whatever. However, there are issues on school campuses with other children with allergies, with dogs or other animals that are not service animals and are not trained, therefore pose a risk to biting another individual or whatever. So we just need clarity, and I think our principals are really wanting that clarity. And so this is an effort to let everybody know exactly what we can have and what we cannot have. And Sherry, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I would just say that the clarity came around for the qualified assistants or service animals. We really wanted to be clear about that,
Right.
What we can and can't do. And then the therapy animals, as we know, in the past, we've had Tales of Joy on our campus and did a great job. So we're still allowing therapy dogs and animals on campus, but they have to be pre-approved before you bring them on our campuses. The service dogs, as you know, they do not have to be pre-approved, and they must be allowed on our campuses. And then I think the only other thing was the big change was there another big change? Not really. Those are the two big things we wanted to clarify.
And we're just discussion tonight, or?
So this one is yes, it's supposed
First
to be.
reading, right?
It's supposed to be a first
You
reading.
can ask,
We have action on I'm just going to take that off. So just a first reading. So
Just a first reading tonight.
any questions? Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I do think that this is an area that everybody that's in a public position can benefit from having additional training on what questions, when we ask somebody to enforce a policy from this, there's so many misconceptions about what's allowed or what you're allowed to ask or not ask. And I think that it's an area of potential liability, and it would be great to be able to provide some training to our employees on, what's appropriate to ask, what's not appropriate to ask, what is allowed and not allowed. So that would be my one recommendation.
So after last year, we did go there. Todd Resch, we worked with Todd, and he has provided training and a document to all workers that work the games, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So they are well trained. We can also go over this in more detail about, there's only 2 questions you can ask.
Right.
They bring a service dog to your facility. And so we can definitely emphasize that again, yes, but we have provided training last year for all of our workers at games and activities.
Yeah, and I would just say I would want to have that training done again with the changes to the policy. Yeah.
You, Michael.
Confused over only dogs or miniature horses.
Yeah, we had to add miniature horses because Lauren did some research and he said, did you know? Miniature horses are service animals.
Yeah.
And that's defined by, statute.
It's defined in the regs and the laws.
You got to learn something every day, right?
But wait, I got, are we,
No, we can ask more
okay,
questions.
well, they were walking away like that.
No, you're good.
But who approves the, I was looking on this, the therapy dogs? I'm sorry, both you guys have mentioned they have to be approved. Who approves that?
School site or the district. So the principal, or I guess Dr. Cleveland, myself would have to approve those.
Really? And how do you do that?
Well, first of all, they have to be certified and they have to be a certified handler. And so you would, in my mind, go to your principal and say, I want to bring my therapy dog on Fridays to provide social emotional support for certain children, and present your proposal, and the principal would say yay or nay.
Yeah, so we need to make sure we have those procedures. So we have the policy, and then just make sure all the procedures are in place.
You can put that in an administrative procedure document, yes.
Yeah, so I guess my only concern is if we're approving this, are we setting ourselves up for something that could backfire on us? I mean, is there a higher authority out there that could come in and say, this is what's approved in the school districts? I don't know if that's something we want to take ownership of. I'm just asking, that's all.
Well, you know, very recently, maybe you saw that in the news, there was a situation in California where there was a dog that was brought for reading assistance, reading therapy, and the owners let the dogs go. One reached out and bit a child in the face, did pretty bad damage. And so, to your point, that's a liability issue. You've got to be sure that they're well trained, and service dogs go through a very intensive training, and they get a certificate. You can take a service animal that's approved almost anywhere. But even then, I guess there's a small chance, but that's nothing like just, I'm going to bring my dog to do something. And my understanding now, hospitals have gotten very tight about the requirements that you have to go through in terms of training before an animal is brought into the hospital for therapy work. So they're valuable. Those animals really help children, and they help adults who are dealing with depression. They've got to be well trained, and they need to go through a program that's recognized and certified.
Right.
Or you're exactly right. Where there's a liability risk there. But there was a very prominent case very recently, and it's a major disfigurement of the child's face. So
We believe that the changes to the proposed policy or to the policy does a really good job of defining what an assistance dog is, a qualified assistance dog, and a service animal is, and what a therapy animal is. And I think when we look at therapy animals in section 2, A2, I think it gives us a great definition of how that process kind of starts, and then what those organizations, an example of what those organizations are that can lead to that type of certification.
You also read the part about liability, Vice President Morgan, that we put in, B, liability, in the policy. Did you see that part?
I did not, man.
Okay.
No, that's the reason why I was asking.
Yeah, there is a section B, liability.
I see it now.
Okay. So it spells it out pretty clear who's liable when. Do you not think so?
Okay.
He's reading it right now. Well, and this is just our first reading too, so we can take it through this week
Lauren,
and
you want
send
to
some
comment on
things
that? I
in.
mean, we're liable.
Yes, we are. I mean,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, that's the hard thing when it comes to any of these
But
things.
there
you
are
know.
programs that
Yeah.
have high success rates, and they're listed in there.
Yeah. Mhm.
And dogs that go through those programs are, I think they even let them on airplanes, anywhere, those service animals. But I think that's very, very different training than just a casual training someone may have if they bring dogs in to read or whatever.
Yeah.
And we love the animals, and we love to have them come, but there are some liability issues.
Yeah, Madam President, Mr. Vice President, I think the first thing to remember is we're only making relatively small changes to an existing policy. And the policy that the board has implemented, and it's been in place for some time, very severely restricts what type of animals can be on district property, and primarily because of the liability. There are some animals that we have to allow, and that class is called service animals. It means a dog that's trained or a miniature horse. That's what the law says. And then all these other types, there's some types that it makes sense, like you want to have gerbils in the classroom for the kids. And then maybe there's some opportunities with therapy animals where it's useful to have those in schools. We would scrutinize those very carefully.
Okay.
And typically we would have an agreement as well that makes sure that it allocates liability.
Good enough. That's a written agreement, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Good enough.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Oh, we're good.
If
Thank you.
there's anything else that comes up, just make sure we bring it up in the next week or so. So before we go into our second read, we can put that in there. So, okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Our last is to consider the approval to move forward with arts integration at Sandia Vista and Enchanted Hills Elementary. Dr. Kurt Schmidt, our Executive Director of Fine Arts, will be presenting, knowing that we just had a large workshop on this right before our meeting tonight. So.
Yes, President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, excuse me. Yeah, I'll just hit a couple of slides from the presentation in the workshop, maybe for the general public that didn't see that. One thing is that we are basing a lot of what we're doing or proposing for these arts integration schools in Rio Rancho Public Schools on a school in Colorado, the Belmar School of Integrated Arts. And it might be interesting to know that since the inception of integrated arts at Belmar 7 years ago, they are starting to see a growth in the reading and math scores. That is complicated a little bit because last year they had an influx and their school size increased by about 33%. Because of neighboring schools that closed. And so they had students enter their school that were not familiar with arts integration, and they've had to integrate them with arts integration into the school system, into their school. So that those data are could be a little skewed. I am trying to get some harder data from the school, and I'll continue to do that for the board's perusal. There are some hard data points. Attendance at the school last year was 94% average attendance. Their chronic absentee rate is only 1%. Since they incorporated the acting right behavior program, the year they implemented it, the year after they implemented it, they saw about a 75% decrease in the number of referrals that were written for students. So those are some harder data points we can lean on. The next slide kind of summarizes the 4-year plan to move Sandia Vista Elementary and Enchanted Hills Elementary to arts integration model. And that is year 0, educating the community and stakeholders in arts integration. Year 1 is implementing the acting right behavior program. Continue our work with the Kennedy Center and New Mexico Art, our partnership there to expand workshops or attendance at the workshops in arts integration and professional development. Year 2, continue with acting right, but introduce the reading art program, which introduces topics or contents through art pieces. And year 3, all of the above, but making a concerted effort to have more public performances, displays of artwork, et cetera. And just again, it's going to take a lot of trial and error. We're going to continue learning as we go through this process if it's approved by the board. And so there has to be an atmosphere, a culture of risk taking, and that failure can be okay as long as it's done. As long as teachers are really trying, they should be encouraged to try new things in their classroom, but not be chastised for failing, because it is a learning environment. And I believe I don't know if you have any further questions from the workshop.
Yeah, and I just want to say again, we have about a 2-hour in-depth conversation about this in our meeting before. And so if there's anyone who's listening in right now who would like to listen to that or watch that, it is on our YouTube channel too. So you can watch that more in-depth conversation with principals and teachers and parents that we talked to about this. So from the board, do we have any other questions on this topic? Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything?
I just want to add on the last comment about freedom to try and that perhaps everything doesn't always work out 100%. But within some parameters. And I would share a situation with one of our local businesses, one of our largest. Many years their production was flat. They didn't feel they were moving in a way they wanted to move. And so their plant manager said, we give you permission to try new things and you may fail. We don't tolerate sloppy engineering. So if your engineering is good and sound and it doesn't work out, go back and try and get better and better. And that company was Intel. And 3 years later, they won the top innovative technology award for the entire Intel system. And so giving people opportunity to try some new things, I don't want people to think that for us, it would be sloppy teaching and learning, but within the parameters of best practices and things we normally do, maybe things won't always be perfect the first time we try it. And yet without that, we don't move forward. And so I thought that was a wonderful lesson learned from them, especially when you went back and it was so successful for them 3 years later. So it's within our version of no sloppy engineering, but we need to try new things. If we don't try new things, we don't get better. And that's the goal. We've always been a district that has tried to be innovative and try to be looking at how we do things better, continuous improvement. And if you don't try new things, it's hard to move from just doing the status quo. So.
Yeah. And Dr. Cleveland, do you recommend approval on this as we go to a motion? Do you recommend approval on this item? Dr. Cleveland, to you. Do you recommend approval?
I do recommend approval. Okay. I would want to stress the in-depth workshop was broadcast. And so people had an opportunity to see it was posted just like the regular meeting, and it was broadcast. And so I would want to add that as we've looked into this, we have had parents, we have had teachers, we have had principals, we have had district office staff. We've all been part of the process and looking at it up to this point. And what we're asking for approval is to move forward with a commitment for the professional development resources for year one so that we can get this underway.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to a motion.
Madam President, this is Board Member Tyler. I'll make a motion to approve to move forward with the arts integration at Sandia Vista and Enchanted Hills Elementary.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
We have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeffrey Morgan. And JC, if we'll go to roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Tyler?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. Okay. Just a couple things. Go ahead and just refer for advanced planning to the agenda. Does anyone have any questions on any upcoming meetings or upcoming anything on advanced planning? Okay. If you are planning to go to that the meeting in December, please let JC know so we can get you on that. And even if you can't go to the whole thing, there's lots of classes on Saturday if you can only make it to those and you need the hours. Okay. All right. So our meeting tonight's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.